Okay, so obviously these playoffs have been a little bit disappointing because of all the injuries, but somehow these games still end up being really entertaining. And this Clippers Suns game was unbelievable. So I'm gonna be honest. I thought that the Clippers were gonna get disrespected, but then thinking about it, the fact that Chris Paul was out, it's like okay. I mean, Chris Paul is obviously not as good as Kawhi Leonard, but him being out makes a huge difference for the Suns. But in this game, even though Devin Booker had an unbelievable game, an absolutely classic game, 40-point triple-double, when I was actually watching it, I felt like DeAndre Ayton was actually the key to the whole series. Well, I shouldn't say the series because it's only game one, but he was definitely the key to this game because from the beginning to the end, DeAndre Ayton was eating for free. I mean, he was getting anything he wanted, whether he was at the top of the key, whether he was deep in the post, it didn't matter. Zubats, however you say his name, Zubats, I'm going to go with Zubats. He wasn't fast enough. Like, he can't move his feet fast enough to guard DeAndre Ayton. Just plain and simple. And nobody else is tall enough. Now, if they had Serge Ibaka out there, that would have been really helpful. I mean, I guess he's still injured or something. I don't know. I mean, Serge Ibaka could have been making a big difference throughout this entire run, in all honesty. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. He's hurt or whatever. But DeAndre Ayton, right, getting whatever he wanted, made a huge difference. And in general, that was the difference in this game, was that even though, the score is actually pretty close, 120 to 114, like you should be able to win a game scoring 114 points from the Clippers side. The difference was every point that the Phoenix Suns scored was so easy. It was just easy. None of it looked strenuous. None of it looked difficult. It was just easy. And then on the other side, the Clippers, whenever they scored, and they did all right. I mean, Paul George gave you 34, Reggie Jackson gave you 24, and this is actually the unbelievable part. The next highest score after that was, I think, DeMarcus Cousins with 11, and he scored all of those points in one quarter, like in literally like a 5-minute span, right? So that actually is kind of encouraging for the Clippers. Now, I don't know if they're going to get Kawhi back in this series. If they get Kawhi back, I think that the Clippers can win. If they don't, I'm not going to bet against them because clearly betting against them has not worked for anybody. But I don't know how they can do it without him. I mean, they just looked overmatched. Because after DeMarcus Cousins, the next highest points total was from Terrence Mann with 9. Now, a lot of these guys, they showed up in the last game versus the Jazz, but that's the thing in the playoffs. With role players, you can't expect them to show up every game. As a matter of fact, with star players, you almost can't even expect them to show up every game. But, even Larry Bird and Michael Jordan have had their off games. But, anyway, getting back to this particular game, Devin Booker is the truth. Devin Booker is unbelievable. I think Paul George felt like a personal responsibility to go at Devin Booker based on how it looked to me. I mean, he looked like whenever Devin Booker was guarding him, he wanted to make whatever he wanted to. He wanted to just jack shots up. And he's a tough shot maker. I got to give him that credit. He is a tough shot maker. The problem is that you can't win a series off tough shots. Like, you have to be running good offensive sets, and you have to be getting your whole team in rhythm. And the Clippers honestly just didn't do that. And again, to a certain degree, that has to be encouraging for them that they played such a difficult game without their best player on the court and lost by 6 points. Where they have to be discouraged is that they don't have an answer for Ayton. Just plain and simple. They have no way to counter Ayton. Right, but where it comes to Devin Booker, you still have the prospect of Kawhi Leonard coming back. He's not ruled out. It's still indefinite. So I don't know. We're just gonna have to see how that goes. If I had to guess right now, though, because of the fact that Kawhi has had his injury issues and because he's so conservative with the way he deals with his own body, I'm going to say he probably doesn't come back in this series. And if he doesn't come back, I honestly do not know how the Clippers can possibly win. Now, with Paul George, the reason Paul George is so interesting is that Paul George is not a number 2. And I think that that's a huge reason why he has looked so inconsistent in the playoffs, is that him trying to find his role, like he's having to completely adjust his own perception of himself at this stage of the playoffs. The only other time he's been in the playoffs this deep, he was the number 1 guy. He was playing for the Pacers, and he was going head-to-head against LeBron. And people forget this, but LeBron anointed him. Like, LeBron gave him his respect and his credit and said, Paul George is next up. Like, that's not light praise. I mean, that's a pretty significant compliment coming from LeBron James at that stage in his career. And so now, as he's entered the second phase of his career, talking about Paul George, he's kind of had to learn and figure out how to be a number 2. And so he's had to learn how to play a support role. And that's why with Kawhi out, you see him putting up these unbelievable numbers, making these unbelievable shots, because that is who he's always been. He's always been the guy. It's just that he's never been good enough to be the number 1 on a championship team. But he's always been the guy. He's totally comfortable in that role. So it's no surprise that he's balling out now that Kawhi's hurt. But even with that said, I don't think they can win this series if Kawhi doesn't come back. And personally, I want to see the Clippers win. It'll piss the world off. It'll be hilarious. I also do want to see Chris Paul get a championship because he's my favorite point guard of all time, personally. But, anyway, that's it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments.